Mr. Sajit Sidharthan. He is from Mahindra Logistics as well. He is the head enterprise transformation and strategy, and he will be talking to us on the theme of strategy and the topic disruptive innovation. Mr. Sajit, thank you for joining us, taking our invitation to join CII's initiative for Think Global, Act Local. Thank you for joining us, and the stage is all yours, sir.
Thanks, John. The pleasure is all mine.
Yeah. So you can share your screen.
Sure.
You can pilot it yourself, and then you can start the presentation. Yeah, we can see your screen now.
Great. So just a time check, how much time do you have?
From 10:45 to 11:30, 11:20 you can finish, 11:25 you can finish. We can have 5 minutes for Q&A. If people do not come, then are not joining for the Q&A, then we can finish by 11:30.
So good morning, everyone. My name is Sajit Sidharthan. I lead the Enterprise Transformation and Strategy Office at Mahindra Logistics. What we typically do is do the entire planning and strategy work at Mahindra. This involves mergers and acquisitions. We work across the board to find newer opportunities. So thanks for inviting me, John, and it's a pleasure to be here. Right, I'm going to talk about disruptive innovation. Right. I think lately this term has been used very vaguely across many instances. But in this session, typically what we're going to talk about is how a disruptive innovation is different from a normal innovation, right? And I think this term was coined in the year of 1997 by a Harvard professor, right? And in a book called The Innovator's Dilemma, right? And if you have time, I would urge you to go through this, because this talks about how some innovations that are radical in nature reinforces the incumbent's position in the certain industry, contrary to what previous model would have predicted, right? So what it simply says is, how do you think different, right? And how do you disrupt the existing markets, right? Incumbents are leadership positions who have been providing these services for a higher number of years. How do you come in and then disrupt this market? This is what the book talks about, and what disruptive innovation is, right? So let me just take you to give you an example by this chart here, right? On the left side of the chart, which is the product and the performance from low to high, and on the x-axis is the time, right? Let me just put a okay. So the blue lines, right, are the ones where the customers will pay for the performance, right? And the red lines are, right, where how the growth trajectory happens. So typically, the middle red line is where the incumbent's trajectory or the growth trajectory is, right? Typically, this is how. So any new player in the market, right, will start with giving a product which is from the mid to the lower range, and then he goes on to a better quality or a better performance product, right? And that's where once he's reached that or crossed that mainstream bucket, right, which is when he's had majority of the market share, he will then focus on customers which are at the top end of the hierarchy, right? So why they will do is because these guys are the most profitable piece of business that the company can have, and then the focus will always be to give higher or better services to this higher end of the market. what it leads to is that leads to a void for the lower end of the market, right? This once the product is moved from the lower end to the higher end, the customers or the incumbents will focus on the top right corner of the entire bucket, which is the high quality market, right? The void is on the lower end. Any new entrant, right, which comes in will start from the lower end of the market, right? And that's where, and once it moves from the lower end to the mainstream is where the disruptions will happen, right? So this is typically how this is how the disruptive innovation market has been evolving, right? And the term disruptive innovation is coined by, again, what I said, right, by a Harvard professor, Clayton Christensen. Refers to a process whereby a new company storms a market, outperforms and displaces and disrupts an established brand and players, right? And when this happens is when the new player, right, enters the mainstream market, first focusing on the lower end of the market, right? Okay. So now, what do disruptors who have actually disruptors who have done great work have spoken about innovative disruption? So yeah, disruptive innovation by Jeff Bezos creates creates new markets and disrupts existing ones, right? What he thinks is a key to progress and the driver for growth. Mr. Bloomberg talked about it is not a tactic, but it's a mindset that allows you to see an opportunity. For him, it is a guiding principle, right? And for Bill Gates, this is a source of getting information and getting to trying to improve yourself, right? So what he said was, your most unhappy customers are the greatest source of learning. So he got ideas from listening to customers, right? And why is disruptors, or how is it important in our area, right? So if you talk about a company, right? If you are part of an organization, you will always have disruptors coming into the market and disrupting the way that you work, right? This topic is to help you understand how to react to that situation, right? It is not about how you majority of us will think it is about how we can become disruptors, right? But it is more so understanding the market, understanding who and how it will impact us in the way that we want to go, right? Do we want to take the path of being disruptors ourselves, or how do you be resilient when there is a disruption in the market by other players? Typically, there are three ingredients of a successful disruption, right? First one, there has to be an enabling technology, right? Which is a product, or how it will make a product more affordable and accessible to a wide population. Second, it has to have an innovative business model, how it targets customers. Typically, a disruptive innovation will either start from a low-end customer or enter into a new market, which is where a product does not exist, and then creates a coherent value network, a network which all your suppliers, partners, distributors are all better off with when this technology prospers. I'll take examples of each one of these in the coming slide. So first one on the enabling technology and how we had increased affordability when it came to Ford Motors. So before this, Benz and Ford both were manufacturing vehicles by hand, and it took a long time. So it did not become a mass produced one. It was only for a few masses, right? With Ford, with the assembly line, Ford was able to build more cars and mass produce these vehicles, whereby it became affordable to the masses. So what it did was, if you remember the previous slide, right, wherein we talked about the blue lines and the red lines, right? The market was about in the mid range and the higher range of higher range, right? Wherein only a few customers could afford a vehicle. But what Ford did is it created a process, the assembly line, wherein they could produce this for the masses, and then this became an innovation. Right. Second was on how to make it accessible to the entire masses. Right. A good example of this is Netflix. Right. Netflix, when it started, right, it started with just a it was not even a streaming device. It's just a storage, storage, online storage, which the broadcast companies did not feel as a threat to their business. Right. So these guys did not pay any hate to this new technology that was coming through, right? But over a period of time, when the technology improved, when Netflix moved to an online streaming kind of service, they replaced all the other incumbents, right? Which is your VHS tapes, DVDs, and eventually Blockbuster too, right? And what it made them was it made them accessible to the content, what they want to watch and when they want to watch, right? So it's very easy for them to watch and what to watch. So it's this technology, or this disruption was making content accessible at any given point of time, right? Third one was with technology, how to make it user friendly, right? I think is we all have gone through this phase wherein we started with Nokia's analog phones, then mobile phone, and then with a smartphone. Right here, I think what if you see what is the change here, right? It is one is Apple made this whole change from you made people move from a normal phone to a touchscreen phone, right? And then change the way that all of us use cell phones, right? It is not just a phone now. We also use it as 10 different things to do our daily work. So how does it make it user friendly, right? And I think Apple is a good example for that. Right. The second part of it is on what is how innovative is our business model, right? And I think Amazon disrupted the way that we buy products, right? And it's a known example. I don't have to talk more about it, right? But the thing to start is it started with an existing product of selling, right? Smaller products, and then it disrupted the entire market. Coherent value networks, right? This is the third part of disruptive innovation, on how this innovation leads to taking everyone together, right? So if you there's a recent example that I want to take is about Zepto, right? This disrupted the way people go and buy products. Again, 10-minute delivery wasn't heard of a year and a half back, right? Zepto came and disrupted this whole market. But what it also required is to create this entire network, right? Both, from suppliers, from people who manages their warehouses and their operations, to your last mile delivery boss, right? And along with it, a great technology team. So I think a disruption, what it does is, makes or improves lives of other people around it, and it takes them along. There are 4 or 5 very important points to consider when you talk about a disruptive innovation, right? First one, disruptive innovation is not a product or a service, right? It is not an evolution. It's an evolution process. Let me before I start this, let me give you an example. Many people think Uber, right? Uber is a disruptive innovation. And listen to me carefully here, right? There's a difference between getting a disruptive innovation and a normal innovation. There are 2 types of innovation, right? So let me go back here. Okay. most of the companies will focus, right, on the sustaining trajectory, which is your sustaining innovation trajectory. What do you mean by sustaining trajectory? Is where people will innovate on their current products and give a better service to the customer. Uh, that is sustaining innovation, right? So what did Uber do? Uber was, they entered the same market, right? They didn't create uh, any new uh, segment, right? Their existing segments were people who used to take cabs, right? And what Uber did was just gave them a better uh, cost, better value, and ease of using, right, the app. So that is what an existing customer base, you give a better service, that becomes an sustaining innovation. It is not a disruptive innovation. Disruptive innovation by Uber would be when they launch their Uber Pool, which is again, they brought a new segment of people who were ideally using uh, public transportation into their network, right? Wherein they could make a taxi, a taxi affordable to a lower strata of people, right? A lower end of the market. So when pool was introduced, people you could, get, or more number of people started using Uber's technology and portal. So that's the difference between a disruptive innovation, and a sustaining innovation. Most of the companies currently are doing sustaining innovations, right? Disruptors are when it, outperforms and displaces the existing brands. I hope that's clear. I just wanted to take a minute there. And so again, coming back, right? What are the points to consider when we talk about disruptive innovation? First one, it is not a product or a service; it's an evaluation process, right? Again, to go back on the Netflix example, right? Netflix started with an online tool, right, where people could go and check the list of products, list of movies that was there, and then watch, right? Uh, but what they did after that is when the online streaming, and they created content as per the requirement of the customers. And that's when they moved all the customers from the VHS, DVDs to their portal, right? That's and it was not done in a year or so, right? It took them 6 to 7 years to get there. So any disruptive innovation, takes time. It evolves. You start with a separate product, then you make it better, and that's how you disrupt the market, right? You start from the lower end of the market, and a disruption happens only when you reach the mainstream type, right? Second one is about the business models that disruptors build, right? Typically, a disruptor will build a business model which is very different from those of the incumbents. To give an example here, uh, iPhone, when iPhone came, right, what they did was, the model that they thought of getting people onto the phone, right? So okay, let me do this. So before, a medium for people to get online was laptop. What iPhone did was created a medium for people to get online through the phones. They created a network of apps, which is their app store, which later Google copied, right? So the app store was enabling customers to do computing work on the phone, right? So what their model was, to bring customers who were typically laptop or getting online on laptop to a newer model wherein all the work would be done through a phone, right? So that's a different business model that Apple brought in, right? Third one is right. Not every disruptive path leads to a triumph, right? and not every triumph newcomer follows a disruptive path. Here, the points that we take is, we just think this as a guiding star, right? The guiding star is is uh, is is just a process for us, and it's a process for all you people there, right? On whether to understand if it's a disruptive process, how it is coming, and what is the way forward for us. Just to think about it, right? So think it as a guiding star, right? The fourth one being, you need not respond to disruption if it's occurring, right? But not you need to you need to respond to disruption if it's occurring, but not overreact by dismantling your still profitable business. This is very important, right? We typically, smaller companies will overreact, right, and impact their current business. Typically, if you look at point number 1 and 2, right, this entire process will take time, and you will have time uh, to recreate your journey and act according to how these disruptors play, right? So, what a strategy that people use here is, build relationship with your existing client base, right, by investing in sustaining innovations, right, and in addition, create a new department within the company which will focus on disruptive innovation. By this, what you're doing is, you're not dismantling any of your existing profitable business, but you're also ready. One, you're innovating at your end, and second, you're also creating a parallel space where people can think different and create disruptions, right? Okay, I have time, right? Oh, 10 minutes. So I think what there are many technologies or trends which is impacting uh, impacting supply chain, right? And in future, some of the techs and innovation which will define the way that we work, right, across organizations, uh, will will be driven by these innovations, right? Most of you have must be working towards this, but yeah, well, I'll just take a couple of minutes here and tell what's the difference, and what are the innovations that is in place, right? uh, Going forward, mostly it would be about creating resilient supply chains. We Many of us have learned over a couple of years on the changes that we have done, and to make our supply chain resilient to the challenges that we expect. How do we be risk averse and be prepared for any disruptions in the market, right? So here, I think some of them it is self-explanatory, but I'll just take you through. Uh, I think self-guided vehicles will be a game changer. I think this is getting tested across the world, right? This both Most of the warehouses uh, uh, will get replaced by these self-guided vehicles, right? Drones, one for the deliveries, and second, also there are other use cases currently being developed for drones. Uh, One disruption is, how do you do your cycle count using drones, right? And this is one model that we at Mahindra Logistics are driving, wherein we're using drones to uh, uh, you know do constant or continuous cycle counts, right? Uh, this is also used for safety and replacement of security guards with drones. Uh, I think there is also one model that we have done a couple of pilots. Augmented reality works well for picking efficiencies, improving picking efficiencies, right? It works for training staff, right? Uh, IoT is where majority of the newer innovations are coming. Right from devices from which we use to devices to be used on our uh, materials as well as machines that we use. Some examples are, IoT devices fitted on your reach trucks to ascertain the productivity of the reach truck, to understand whether there have been any accidents. IoT devices on shipments, which enable real-time tracking of shipments where it is lying, right? Uh, Robotics, all as value-added services, which is packing, picking, uh, sorting, all done through robotics. I think this fast-paced environment, this will play a bigger role. Big data, right? I think this is another big thing. Currently, we are the challenge currently in India is most of this is unorganized and we don't have the requisite data. But for the ones where we have, big data will play a immense role. I think this is where predictive analysis and help. This will help us being a resilient organization. The data that we process. I think what is imperatives for us as incumbents or disruptors, right? The first is majority of us are incumbents here, right? We'll have to have integration of edge level technologies and predictive analysis. I think this is the key, right? By edge level, you mean how do you do computing closer to the place of action, right? Uh, could be uh, could be your last mile delivery person doing and providing analytics to that person, right? Or uh, you know doing rule-based computing at the warehouse on the handle, right? So how do you integrate these technologies and build in predictive analytics, right? Uh, the future of supply chain will be on predictive analytics, uh, right? We Everyone in this world now are moving towards lean supply chains, just in time, how to reduce the cost of material as well as cost of uh, keeping those materials in, right? Because that also plays a big impact on the balance sheets, the stock that we keep. So how do you be lean there? I think this analytics will help us guide those principles, right? How do you differentiate our services through tech-enabled services, right? So uh, this will, I think these technologies will help us differentiate with other players and how do we operate, right? There's a lot of scope for automation across the players. I think in India, we always think when it comes to automation about uh, the cost, but from a long-term perspective, if you think uh, the the economics works better in terms of automation, right? Just the pure play economics will not work, but if you think about the rework and everything, the economics does change there. The last one is about uh, how do you focus on speed and the scale of integration, right? Uh, uh, there are changes that are happening. How do you innovate constantly, uh, right? Sustaining of innovation is important. So we would, we have to evolve with the industry. And let me give you a couple of examples of disruptive innovation by logistics companies in India, right? If you remember before, so I'll talk about Rivigo first. There's one company which we recently acquired. Rivigo changed the way that material move from point A to point B, right? They change the tax of the industry in terms of how we operate, right? Typically, earlier, Delhi, Bombay, 6-7 years back was what, 4 days, 4 days minimum. These guys came up with a model which could deliver goods from Bombay to Delhi within 36 to 48, 36 hours, right? So what did they do, right? One is they thought about the drivers, right? The human part of the drivers and how these drivers need to go back home after driving 200 kilometers. They implemented a relay model wherein the vehicle and the goods were transported to point A to point B, wherein a driver would just drive from point A to point B. Another driver uh, uh, takes over from point B to drive to point C, and then vice versa, right? So in a given point of day, a driver will drive about 300 to 400 kilometers, and by end of day he's again back. You know, they created the switch stops where the drivers used to come in and rest, and again they would get a return vehicle back to their home, right? What it did was it drastically reduced the transit times, right, and increased efficiency. Right? And second is they gave a better life to the drivers, right? Otherwise, a typical driver will reach home in 15 days, 10 days to 15 days, right? So the quality of life of these drivers improved drastically, and that's why their happiness quotient increased, and they were able to deliver better. Another example of a disruptive technology, is a new technology, which is a digital freight market, is done by a Blackbuck, right? Which connects shippers and carriers. These are initial disruptors. There are many more that have come in now, and most of the other incumbents have launched their own marketplaces, right? But Blackbuck was an innovator there, right? And what along with freight marketplace, what they introduced was AI-based route automation to help ensure how the goods move faster and better. And that's it from my end. I think I finished on time, like 11:20. We have 10 minutes more. Sean, if you have any, or any of you.
Thank you, Mr. Sajit, for your wonderful presentation. I'm going to ask the participants if you have any questions, please do join us on this Zoom call. Thank you, Mr. Sajit, for this wonderful presentation. I have certain questions. Like, could you please give us some specifics on some of the things that you have done in terms of strategy for Mahindra Logistics? I know you've explained. Could you please go a little deeper into it so that people can understand?
So we regularly study what the market, how it operates, what the market trends are, and then create strategies around it, right? On how to navigate around, right? So most of it depends upon how the macros of the industry is running, right? Currently we are looking at a mild slowdown in the industry, right? It is if you look at freight rates, your freight rates have fallen. It's on a very downturn trend, right, for the last 1.5 years.
Yeah.
But we saw that coming across, because most of the newer ships that were ordered during the COVID period, right, or before that, and the containers that were ordered before that and during COVID period, all this work had got down. So this entire supply of containers as well as ships which were ordered were going to get delivered in like mid of 2022 to the year 2023, right? That would have created increased supply, wherein we would have seen a price drop. So these are all triggers, and that we have to study before it happens, and then we have to act accordingly. So we have to ensure that how do you grow the volume on the freight side, right? To ensure that we meet those revenue targets, even when the price goes down. So we have to focus more on the volume.
Yeah. All right. I think the participants are very reserved today. They're not coming in for the questions. But with that, thank you, Mr. Sajit, for taking our invitation, and thank you for this wonderful speech. I think the participants would have had a lot of insights from you.
Sure. The pleasure is ours.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks.